Welcome back to the workbench, and I'm actually on the workbench today, for this kit is a little bit larger than normal. Today I'm taking a look at the Junkers Ju87D tank buster in 1/72 scale from Revell. Join me as I take a look inside the box and find out what it's like. Hi, I'm Matt and you're watching Model Minutes. So today we're taking a look at this, the Junkers Ju87D. So on the front of the box we've got a very exciting image of the aircraft in combat. It seems to be firing its large 37mm guns, I think they are. Personally I think he's a bit high and possibly at the wrong angle to be attacking anything, so he's probably going to miss. And he's only got a limited amount of shells, it's like 6 rounds per gun, so he's probably going to miss his target at this one. Over here on this side of the box we've got some dimensions of the finished kit, and down here the code, which is 04692. Flip over to the back, we've got the normal information that you'll find on the back of a Revell kit, which is some more kits in the range, along with some other accessories you might want to purchase, and a breakdown of the various skill levels. This is a skill level 3. Skill level 3 would indicate that the model is a bit more demanding with up to 100 parts, but it will have more than 30. So anywhere between 30 and 100 parts. On one long edge of the box we've got some information about the actual Junkers 87 as well as some safety information. And then on the other side we've got a call out of the various colours you might want from the Revell range. Some features that are actually inside this kit. So it says here that there is a representation of the engine. You should have a moving propeller, detailed cockpit, surface structure details, so on and so forth. And then over here at this end we've got some images of a finished version of the kit, just showing us the cockpit, the landing gear with the gun, and also the propeller area. The long edges of the box don't feature anything different to what was on the front. So let's get inside the box and see what it's like. As usual, I'm going to take a look at the instructions first. Let's move that out of the way. Oh, this is just the standard Revell safety sheet, so make sure you have a look through that, but you should get that, the same one, in every single Revell kit that you make. So the front of the instructions features a black and white image from the box artwork. You've got the same information about the Junkers 87 and some actual sort of specifications on the aircraft down here, as well as some information about Revell at the bottom. Turning over, we've got some more health and safety information, some useful tips and tricks, a key to the symbols that you might encounter during the build, and then some, I think this is the warranty information at the bottom here. On to page 4, and we're starting to see the very frustrating paint call out system that they use. Despite the fact that every single Revell paint pot has a number, they then give it a letter as well in the painting instructions. So for this one, for example, if you know you've got number 9, which is basically black, you will then have to remember that number 9 is actually A in this. So you're going to have to, what I do normally is go through and write in the actual paint colours instead of the letters, because I don't really like this system. But as you can see, there will be quite a few paints needed to complete this one. Over on the first page we get a sprue map, which is quite handy in case you lose anything, you can't quite find it on the sprues. And it already gives us a heads up that we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 sprues and possibly a clear one inside the bag when we come to it. The first couple of steps are where we build up the cockpit, and you can see that there's quite a lot of things that need painting on this. Moving down to 3 and 4, we're now on to building up the engine assembly, and it's quite nice to see an engine installed in a model kit so that you can potentially display it as a diorama. Progressing on down, we're adding all of those main parts into the fuselage, and then we get down to here 8 and 9, and we are adding the fuselage together and putting in the tail surfaces. Step 10 and 11, so you can actually build two different versions of the Junkers 87. You can build a G2 version or a D3 version, and depending on which one you're going to want to build, you have to open out different holes in the bottom of the wings. Either for, in the G version you're going to have cannons, and in the D version you're going to have bombs. When we get down here, there's a little symbol here saying you need to cut this off. and this is the machine gun. And you only cut that off, I believe, if you're doing the G version, because the G version wouldn't have had a machine gun, whereas the D version, I'm pretty sure, did. So just be aware of that. It hasn't actually indicated on here that you should only do it for one version or the other. So just be aware of that, and the same there. What's a little bit weird is that the wings come in two halves, but then there's like the end needs to be slotted in, and I always question why didn't they just mould that bit onto the end of the wings, but oh well, I guess that's the way they chose to do it. We add the wings onto the fuselage. The wheels are two parts and they go together, and then they sit inside the landing gear legs. So if you don't glue that in, it should be able to spin freely, and then that gets glued onto the bottom of the aircraft. And then, like I said, you get different munitions with the aircraft. So the D3 version, you're going to have some a big bomb under the main fuselage, and then some little bombs underneath the wings, and they install like that. The air brakes will then go on as well, and here you see you've got the G version, which is the cannon. So obviously if you're going to put the cannon on, you don't need the bombs, and vice versa. Moving on, we are installing air intakes and radiators, smaller details. The machine gun goes into the rear of the cockpit canopy, which you can see they've already painted by this step. Then that can be attached to the model. The propeller goes onto its mounting point, and this part, which is the nose cowling, you don't actually have to glue that in if you don't want to, because it looks like it's removable, so you can view the engine. Some smaller details are added at step 29, and are we there? Yes, we're there. So that is it. 29, well, it's actually a bit less depending on which version you build, but about 29 steps to get a completed model, so it's not too complicated. The instructions seem to be really, well laid out. It doesn't seem to be particularly busy. You just have to make sure that you follow the different steps and make sure you pay attention to what you're doing so that you build the right version. Now we flip over to this side and we've got the painting instructions. So the first one is for a G version in 1944, and the second is for a D3 version, also in 1944. So as you can see on this one, there are the machine guns on the D3, but no machine guns on the G version, so I was right. But what I don't like from Revell when they do their painting instructions is that they do it in black and white, and they use different shades of grey. And I don't know if you can see this on here, but the bottom here is supposed to be C, which is whatever that colour, so that'd be like the sky blue colour, and then the tips are supposed to be yellow, but I can't really tell the difference between those two shades of grey. So if I wasn't, particularly aware of what I was doing, I would end up painting the whole bottom in the same colour. And depending on which one you read, you could potentially paint the whole bottom yellow, which is wrong. Just the tips need to be yellow. I think what Revell need to do to make this a bit more high quality is to print these in colour at the very least. The G version looks like it should be slightly easier to do, as the top and the bottoms are primarily one main colour. And then you've got the D3 version, which is a little bit more complicated, but it's just the splinter camouflage, and you haven't got any mottling either. But personally, I'm tempted to do the G version because of the massive guns, and I find that particularly interesting. But obviously I'm going to put a poll up in the corner. Make sure you vote and let me know which version to do. And that's it for the instructions. So you get one sheet of decals. It's not too big, but you can see already we've got the various crosses on there and lots of other little decals too. So we've got various warning indicators, we've got different labels, we've got the control panel, walkways. There seems to be quite a lot on there. They look to be up to the usual standard from Revell, but one thing I have noticed is they seem quite thick. They seem a little thicker than normal, but maybe that's a good thing, because some of the Revell decals I've had have been so thin that they've just torn themselves to pieces as I've been applying them. So maybe having them a little bit thicker isn't a bad thing. Generally the printing looks to be really well done. I can't see any issues with them, so hopefully they'll go onto the model really well. And now it's time for the main event, the plastic components. Contained in one plastic bag, you get, hopefully, the number of sprues they said you do in the instructions. The only thing with this I find is that the amount of sprues you've got here don't really seem to match up to the size of the box. I feel like they could have used a smaller box, but oh well. So 1 clear sprue, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so 4 green plastic sprues and 1 clear one. The plastic feels very smooth. It does feel a little bit oily, so watch out for that when you come to paint it. You'll need to wash these first. I'm pretty aware that this is quite an old tooling, so they're trying to get their money's worth out of it. And they've used quite a lot of mold release on this one to make sure that they preserve the tools. So make sure you wash them so that the paint and cement stick. Let's take a look at the detail on these. So we've got here the 2 wing surfaces. We've got both upper halves on this side and the lower halves on this side. So if we flip them over, you can see that there are raised details on this, and the mold quality seems to be a little bit poor. There are sort of scuffs and scratches all over the various areas. There are some recessed details, but mostly the detailing on this is raised. The plastic seems to be quite thin as well. It's easy to bend. Generally, there's not much in the way of flash. It looks okay on that regard. Let's take a look at the fuselage. Again, it's the same deal. We've got raised details. Not much in the way of flash. We've got the gun components. There's a little bit of flash in places, but they look okay. They don't look too bad. Moving on to this sprue, we've got various components including the landing gear legs, we've got the propeller, the engine cowling, some of the bomb mounts, I think you'd call those, bomb mounts. And then we've got bits of the engine area, and the details on that's alright. There's some recessed detail in some places. Again, the flash amount is it's minimal. There is some flash in places like here. Moving on to the last sprue. So here on this bit you can see we've got the engines, and the engines actually have the most amount of flash on them. There's quite a lot around the outside which you're going to need to remove. The moulding quality is okay. There is a reasonable representation there, which is quite nice to see. But I'm not sure of the accuracy. I couldn't say because I don't know that much about the Junkers 87. The wheels look to be quite well done too. There is a little bit more flash on this sprue though. Look on the inside of the engine, that's just like a moulded blob of craziness. So you're going to have to just sand some of this away because there seems to be excess plastic. And then on the tail surfaces here you can see you've got some recessed details such as where the elevators meet the stabilizer. The seats look okay, but the moulded harnesses don't look particularly prominent. Let's take a look at the clear part now. The clear part looks alright. The moulded lines are quite shallow. They're not particularly easy to see. There is a little bit of scratching on the top here, and there is a little bit of flash, so just watch out for that when you come to it. It's not the best clear part that I've seen, but it is okay. So that's it. We get one clear part, 1, 2, 3, 4 plastic sprues moulded in green plastic. The moulding quality is okay, but the detail is somewhat questionable and it feels a little bit oily. We get a nicely printed set of decals. We get the standard instructions from Revell, which are okay to follow, but the painting instructions are less than perfect. We get the safety warning sheet, and it all comes contained within a pretty oversized box. I think they could have saved a little bit of money there and made the box a bit smaller, but perhaps they just have standard sizes. So that is it. That is what you get inside the Revell Junkers Ju87 G/D Tank Buster. A little history on this kit. This particular version dates from 2010, so it might not be in production at the moment, but you might be able to get it second hand in some places. There was a model set version which came with paints and glues, which was released a year later in 2011, but this tooling does actually date from 1975. So that's part of the reason why it doesn't look like it's up to today's standards, as in, you know, having the flash it does have, the fact they've used a lot of mould release to get it out of the mould toolings when they're making it, and the fact that you've got raised details. Whereas more commonly now, more modern reproductions will have recessed details, and more of them. So comparing this from the memory of the Airfix version, although it's not a G, it's like a B, I think, the Airfix version is a considerably better looking tooling than this one. Hopefully though, this builds up into quite a nice model, and I know that most of you voted for it on a recent poll on my channel, so you should see me making a start on this soon. One thing I forgot to mention about this is that you don't get any crew figures, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but it is something that I can live with. If you do want to depict this flying, you would have to source some, maybe from the spares box or from another manufacturer. As always, honourable mention to my patrons over on Patreon. A massive thank you to you guys for the support that you give my channel. To find out more about becoming a patron and the perks it gets you, take a look at the links in the description. I'm also on social media. You can connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and my Discord server. If you managed to make it this far in the video, please click that like button and subscribe with notifications on to see more videos. All that's left to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the workbench again next time.